Hello everyone, in today's video I want to talk about the most epic boss fights in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Needless to say, there are going to be major spoilers, so if you haven't played the game yet, consider this your warning. Starting off at number 12, we have the Painted Love. To even reach this fight, you have to climb the tower, which felt to me like a nod to the Pantheons from Hollow Knight. That's what came to mind as I was doing the challenge. You have to fight every single Nevron plus one of the accents just to get to the top. It's a grind. It took me a while in New Game Plus on Expert. The final fight is particularly interesting if you already know the full story, but what makes it epic for me is that Clair painted every single thing you face, and says the final fight is her favorite creation. It's a surprisingly wholesome moment. At number 11 we have Duelist. This was probably the first boss fight that really made me think of the Soulsborne inspiration behind the game. Even though he isn't a one-time boss, since you can fight him multiple times later, that first encounter was something else. The cutscenes and music are insanely good, and the fact that you walk through a battlefield scarred by the destruction the Nevron caused makes the build-up incredibly intense. I really enjoyed the fight. Coming in at number 10 is Clair. This is the second hardest boss fight in the game. No question. The fight itself is absolutely epic, and the events leading up to it are fantastic. You learn a lot about Clair, and there's a deeply emotional scene after the battle. It's hard for me to place this fight so low because I genuinely loved it, but I feel the other fights were even more powerful in terms of music, visuals, and emotional impact. That said, this is still an incredible boss. Up next at number 9 is Siren, the first accent I faced on both of my playthroughs, and according to Verso, the harder of the two. I agree. What makes this fight epic is the lead up. You walk into a dance arena filled with spinning Nevrons, and you're immediately mesmerized by Siren. The whole area is spectacular. Finding your way to her reminded me of Elden Ring and Ultra Kill, just a beautiful, surreal location. Then you fight one of the most difficult Nevrons in the game, Glissando. It took me a few attempts during my first run. Siren herself is also quite the challenge, and the scene that follows the battle is visually stunning. Now at number 8 we have Alicia. The fight was fascinating. Lore-wise, it's one of the most important and emotional battles in the game. The fight isn't too difficult once you learn your own patterns, which is exactly what the game expects you to do. Learn Mael's attacks. Still, it took me a few attempts during my first playthrough. I didn't even know about the one-shot build back then. The reason this fight is so high on the list is the narrative behind it. It's absolutely gorgeous from start to finish. At number 7 we have the Lamp Master, the very first real boss in the game. This was the first fight that made me go, wow. The wow factor here is off the charts. After a somewhat challenging encounter in the cave and a very intriguing cutscene, you enter phase 2. And that's when you realize, oh, so we're playing that kind of game now. I absolutely love this fight. The music is beyond epic. I can still hear it in my head as I'm making this video. And what comes after this fight is one of the greatest scenes in the game. It's just so well done. The fight isn't that hard, but it's incredibly epic, and that earns it a place on this list. The reason why this fight finds itself at number 7 is because of what comes after. It's not just the fight, it's the emotional weight and cinematic brilliance that follows it. I was seriously tempted to place it even higher, and maybe I should have, but for now, number 7 feels right. At number 6 we find Simon. This is the hardest boss fight in the entire game. Honestly, if there are any bosses in any game that can rival Radon, Malenia, or Sister Frida, it's Simon. Pure epicness. He's the only boss that really forced me to level up and rethink my strategy on Expert during my first playthrough. At first I thought I had him. I had already beaten Clair in the Painted Love, so I felt overleveled. But then, that cutscene hit. I immediately knew we were in trouble. The transition reminded me of Radon's phase shift in Elden Ring, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was directly inspired by it. And then what happens when you get him to very low HP in the second phase is, well, ouch. Let's just say I wasn't ready for it. Also, the lore behind him is insane. That's when you learn he was the one who defeated what was allegedly the strongest Axon. It's chilling to be facing that guy after hearing those facts. Even Verso didn't want to go there at first, but Mael insisted. Let's go. And so we did, and we ended up having to put Verso's old friend to rest. That alone makes the whole experience even more epic. From the abyss that echoes Dark Souls 1 to the Elden Ring-esque intensity, and finally that god-tier music, everything about this fight screams cinematic masterpiece. And the fact that Simon fights one-handed the entire time, clear Artorias inspiration, a masterpiece. If he were a main boss instead of an optional one, he might have topped this list. Honorable mentions include Goblu for the significance and symbolism related to Sophie, Sprong for being one of the very first Nevrons created, Monoko, not really an enemy boss but definitely a funky and memorable fight, and of course Golgra for providing one of the funniest interactions in the entire game. The next 4 bosses were very hard to rank, but after much thought, here's what I've decided. At number 5 we have Renwa, the second encounter inside the monolith. You finally reach the Paintress, only to be confronted by her painted version of Renwa, her husband. This fight is just beautiful. The dialogue between Renwa and Verso is unforgettable and adds a critical piece to the puzzle. I also love the curator's interference, which becomes even more meaningful once you learn who the curator really is. The setting, the revelations, and the surreal atmosphere inside the monolith all contribute to making this fight feel monumental. And then comes the second stage, when Renwa unleashes the beast. It reminded me of Godfrey turning into Hoarah just before the Radagon fight in Elden Ring. The beast, however, doesn't take over. It joins Renwa. It's a chilling moment that amplifies the intensity and drama of the encounter. This fight builds so much narrative tension, and it absolutely delivers. Taking the number 4 spot is the Paintress. This fight is peak narrative climax. The entire game builds towards slaying the Paintress. When you finally get to her, you think she's the final boss, and that moment is pure magic. The battle is absolutely gorgeous. It reminded me a lot of Radagon. Everything, the visuals, the pacing, the atmosphere is flawless, and Verso revealing the rock to SKA and SKA helping the expeditioners fly up to reach the Paintress, it's so beautifully made. I don't need to say much more, it speaks for itself. At number 3 we have the final boss, Renwa. Now this one is tricky. By the time I reached this fight I was level 87. I had already defeated Clair in the Painted Love, and as a result, Renwa, in his final form, went down in 2 or 3 hits. Mechanically it's the same fight as the tower version, so this ended up being the easiest boss for me. But that doesn't matter. The scene and the ending are absolutely phenomenal. Then comes the final choice. I chose Verso, which I really think is the right call. And then there's Mael. That fight isn't challenging, but it's devastatingly emotional. Easily the most emotional fight in the entire game. At number 2 we have the Mask Keeper, the best Axon hands down, located in what I consider the most aesthetically beautiful and conceptually deep location in the game. This isn't just a fight, it's an art piece. First you battle the visages, thinking that's it, then the friendly man from earlier reveals himself as the true Axon, the Mask Keeper. I got goosebumps both times I played it, even on New Game Plus, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it now. It's probably the most thought-provoking boss fight I've ever experienced. I absolutely loved it. And finally at number 1 we have Renwa, the first encounter in Old Lumia. This may be controversial, but I think the first encounter with Renwa is the most epic fight in the game. It was the first true challenge that took me multiple attempts, but it wasn't just about the gameplay. The music, the cutscene, and especially the reveal before the fight, it's all absolute cinema. Everything about this moment, the build-up, the twist, the execution, is perfect. For me it came down to this or the Mask Keeper, but in the end, considering everything, the plot, the surprise, the artistry, this is the most epic fight in the game. Let me know what your favorite boss fight was in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned, stay strong, see you on the next one, for those who come after.